Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. So this is our June 23rd meeting, 2020. I'd like to welcome everyone here. It appears we have 6 members present, and Corey, on the phone we have. Kelly just logged in. Okay. All right, so there are 9 members.
Correct.
All right, so that would start us out with approval of the minutes.
I move approval of the 26 May minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that seems to be all of us.
It's working.
All right, so now we're under finance, the disbursements. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
How about a second? There's a second by Bill Ashton. All right, is there any questions before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, hold on.
There's an item here that I may have asked, it's professional services of 3,000. What's that for?
It really should probably be folded into our general account. I think it's a holdover from when we've sometimes contracted out for various services, as it says, professional services. We haven't used it in the last year or two in the budget, so.
And then on total maintenance of buildings and grounds, there's 2 items, 42,000 and 20,000. Is that the 62,000 that kind of goes through the whole system?
Well,
I
one's
need to see
project
what you're-
expense.
They're 2 different lines. You talk about
And where's the 42,000 come from?
that, yeah, that's our general maintenance.
That's just a general item.
General maintenance, so like, yeah, not facilities maintenance when we have a call or whatever, but there are similarities between buildings and ground maintenance and project expense, there, if that's what you're asking. So those all,
I was just confused.
yeah, and oftentimes those 2 are, we could take out of either. That's true.
Okay.
For specified projects.
So you have a couple of, you have utilities that have to be backloaded, but it appears that maybe on the expense side, we're under budget.
I think so.
All right. And then on the revenue side,
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna finish probably just about on budget, possibly. I mean, I know it's showing a little over, but I think, I don't see it changing much from where we're at right now. So just about on budget from the revenue side.
all right, and you have everything built out, but we'll see maybe next month how people are doing on their runs.
Correct. That is correct.
All right. All right, all those in favor of the disbursements? Say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right, I'm going to take that as all of us.
Yeah, I can.
All right, that brings us down to leases. I'm going to say this out loud. QC Cultivate Rumor Mill at the Freight House.
Right, so you saw this last month to review the draft lease agreement, and then this month is, it's on the agenda for approval. I want to make a couple notes that, some changes as far as prior to the packet I should have made. So one is, looking at that the first page, instead of May 26th, June 23rd, obviously, will be changed when we go to execute this, as that's today's date. And then from a term standpoint, we're still looking at the 24 months, but we're going to start at September 1st and go 24 months to August 31st of 2022. And therefore, then the next line in the number 3 line rental changes from July 1st to September 1st. And then the last change would be the last page where it would read QC Cultivate would be a signatory rather than the Freight House Farmers Market, okay? So just those changes, as we would approve this, have already been made to the executable document.
Bill moves approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Bill?
D, I need to back up a second.
Okay.
No,
Question?
yeah, no, we gotta find the sheet. Where we have a tabulation of our income from the leases. Molly Newell's one's listed there. Where are we on trying to work out an agreement with her?
We still need to circle back where we haven't come to terms yet. We haven't actively engaged for a couple months either, to be honest with you. I just need to circle back.
But we're paying.
Yeah, we're being paid and at the same rate, and so, yeah, we had agreed a few months ago to just do month to month until we could iron out the agreement.
Nothing's been done and really no progress been made. Okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to approve the lease. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It's approved.
Okay.
We're already to projects, so really this isn't a project. The first item are the bylaws of the commission. And according to our bylaws, we make a decision and read them at one meeting, and then at the next meeting, we actually vote on them. And so this would be the meeting that we vote. And what we're looking at is how to allow people to vote by phone or any other electronic methodology. So under our bylaws 3.5C, where it says members shall be physically present, that would come out. And inserted in 3.5C would be members shall be physically or virtually present at the meetings in order to exercise their vote. One of the concerns with that was to make sure that people actually, when we can all come to meetings, we prefer to be at meetings. And so the minutes from here on will reflect if you're here physically or if you're here by phone on the minutes themselves, so we can kind of see that going forward, if that makes all sense. So that would be the motion if someone would make it.
I make a motion, we approve.
There's been a motion to make, second? Okay, there's a second.
I got some discussion.
All those in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, we have a question. All right.
We had, in the time we've been on here, one of the commissioners that would go to Florida. And he would be there and we got in I wouldn't say a dispute, but the paragraph that requires you to be at three commission meetings or you would be dropped, I guess. So the question I got is if somebody goes to Florida and then participates via
Virtual.
not present physically, can he stay there and be a member and actually almost be living in Florida then?
Well,
I
I
couldn't
think,
say that that's my only question. Our
Yeah.
concern
let me
is,
take that one.
our concern as commissioners was that he wasn't present in an actual meeting. And he even, at the time, he wanted to call in and I think we said no. Now we're saying you can go, as long as you call in, you can participate.
Well, this is what I think, Bill. One is we talked about that briefly, and I think all of us have that concern. We only meet 12 times. We need to participate. But many of us, and a lot of us are becoming younger and traveling. And I mean, if they're at a work thing and they're taking the time to be at this meeting, I think it's great. In this situation, we really need this. And this may go on all the way through next year. I mean, while I don't have my mask on in the moment, I'm very careful. So this is this is an issue we have to handle. We'll note it in the minutes, and I think what we should do is come to terms. If we see what seems to be happening that we don't like, then I think we find a way to regulate that in the bylaws. We tried that last time with some wording in terms of the last meeting and couldn't quite figure it out. I think we just kind of need to see how this plays out. It's our bylaws, we can amend it in 2 meetings. And that, I think that'll just give us an idea. So right now, I'm very trusting, and I think people really want to be on this commission. Of course, leaving for 5 to 6 months is a long time to be away, so I don't think we're looking for a retiree that's only spending half the year here. It's not that kind of board job, but, missing meetings during the year for all kinds of reasons are okay. I think, as long as we see active passion and participation.
Absolutely.
All right, with that, is there any other questions? Those in favor of the motion to change the bylaws, say aye.
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 All right, nay? All right, it passes. You guys can really vote on the phone now. All right.
Officially.
Officially.
It counts.
Yeah, no, it all counts. All right, so,
I'm going to Jamaica.
Yeah.
well, you go right ahead.
6
Don't
months?
come back too soon. Let's move on to the Union Station lease listing agreement. It's a standard agreement, but would you go through it and
Sure
kind
will.
of explain what's going on here so we all have an
So
understanding?
we're losing our prized tenant on the second floor of Union Station, Rock River Family Office, probably in August to September time period. And so we've had them probably 5 to 6 years or so, and they have decided to relocate. And so I, upon receiving this information, thought it best to reach out to Thad and Hartog, who we've used before at a couple other parcels. Package Express there at Union Station was one of them, and I think also early on at the Marina, 935 East River Drive. And so this is a standard templated agreement that he uses. You'll see that it kind of goes for approximately 6 months. Hopefully we'll have someone in there prior to that, because we'll be lacking revenue if, every month after that it sits empty. And so, this is why you all are in receipt of this for approval, so that then we can get it listed for lease, and hopefully have identified a new tenant to occupy that space. It's just under 2,500 square feet. And it's nice looking. In fact, we are the beneficiary of some improvements. When the current tenants first moved in, they created kind of a boardroom area and kept it with the nice, look of what was existing. So it's a nice improved space that we hopefully will find a tenant for quickly.
All right, I have the first question, I think. Maybe I'll first ask what you think the brokerage fee would be, but as I read F1, if this is a 3-year lease, say we get someone and it's a 3-year lease, it says the gross lease value payable when the lease is executed, and the term is the primary term of the lease. So if it's a 3-year lease, or if it's a 1-year lease, explain what you expect
But
there.
6%, in the past, what we've done with that is 6%, his fee is 6% off of what agreement. So if it's a 3-year lease, the value of that and 6% of it is what he receives if he's brought them to us.
Okay. But if it's only a 1-year lease, he does a lot of work for not much money.
6% of 1-year
Okay.
lease value.
All right, I just wanted to understand that.
Yep.
Okay,
We can't go more, well, we can go more than 3 years, but you understand that we typically don't.
right.
And he's aware of that as well, typically.
All
we
right,
like
so
to-
the understanding here is really most likely it would be a 3-year lease.
2 to 3 years, what we
Okay.
most often use, yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve this contract?
I'll make a motion we approve the lease listing agreement.
Okay, Bill makes the
I'll
motion.
second it.
And Bill seconds it. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, it seems 100%. It's approved. You want to bring us up to date on the next item?
Yes, so the strategic plan, there's not a whole lot to report at this meeting, but for River West, we have been engaged with Kevin James with Quad City Consulting Group and Chad Dyson with Parks, and wanting to restart that, wanting to get that started. I think I mentioned last meeting that it's my opinion that we wouldn't want to launch the effort in a virtual hybrid physical presence kind of way. And so my hope is that we'll be able to, by August, begin some sort of meeting, some representative. You'll recall this is, Core and Parks and us and, River Action. I mean, hoping to have some diversity to a group that would help brainstorm, guide, and develop a strategic plan for us to have for Credit Island and the Causeway in this robust area, but also then to share with the city council so that we could hopefully seek to phase in some of these projects over time as well. But initially, without getting too far down the road, we need, several months of this planning, process, and I see it starting in August, to be honest, at this point. I do see next meeting here, I could see, looking ahead a little bit for the agenda, I could see us having a nice mini, sort of robust discussion about what we value and what we think. I could see that happening. It would be good time for us to have that as we lead into, so that we can kind of go into the overall meeting all on the same page as well.
Yeah, I think when we've talked about River West, it's really starting west of Marquette,
Correct.
not just where the
That's right.
island
That's
is,
correct.
but like to take us down to, to the end of the, the city where we have jurisdiction.
That's right.
So it's probably maybe broader than the Parks Department, and maybe that's one of the things we can focus.
Yep, I think
Focus
it's
on.
bringing in, I could make a large map of that area and sort of bring people who might not be familiar up to speed on that area and what it looks like and what its current state is, and then kind of go from there with the discussion. If you're all on the same page, I think next meeting would be a good time to kind of delve into that a little bit more than we sometimes do with individual items.
You want to go ahead
Yep.
with interior, exterior projects?
Yep, item D, Union Station interior and exterior projects. We have in the interior, those projects are completed, and we have Visit Quad Cities now as a tenant inside. As I have reported in the past, they plan to do their build out while they're open, and that sounds more dangerous than it is. It's not. The idea is to begin to bring people in and to have, renderings of some of their eventual build out, which is to be finished by around Labor Day. And so to take those months instead of having it closed off, to still be, to still have a visitor counselor there and on hand and doing some of those things at the same time. So that's really good. The other great news, I think, is that on the exterior side of things, we're beginning the process. It's kind of a two-pronged process when you talk about FEMA and flood funds. You have this one pocket of money for repair and replace dollars when something is damaged, and then a separate program and funding source altogether called mitigation, flood mitigation, 406. And those dollars go through a whole different process, and so what's encouraging at this point is that FEMA is very highly receptive to our proposed, our outline proposal for mitigation at Union Station, and that's helpful. And so what we're doing right now as a staff is trying to work through the various details and logistics of connecting those dots so that we don't have a situation where we do something and then have to undo it, that they talk to each other, meaning the program scope talks to each other and makes sense. And so the hope is perhaps that this construction season, we will see some of the damage that was done. Well, I'll put it this way. So this construction season, that anything that is done would not, that would prepare us well for any potential flooding between here and the time that mitigation program could be done. And that we don't really know, but my hope would be that next construction season in the calendar year of 2021, that could be done. That we're not in charge of that process, or at least that calendar. And so what we have to do is make sure we're not exposed for any potential flooding if we do start to do something before we're completely mitigated, right? That those two things are independent of exposure for flooding.
But I thought, didn't Graham actually design
Yep.
the repair part? So
Yes,
the piece underneath the canopy and the hard surfaces where the Hesco's barriers would go next year, if the rest of it wasn't done.
And then build on top
Should
of
be
that.
designed, is that the part that would be let this year for construction?
Yes.
All right.
That's the
And you see
idea.
that's fairly soon or in?
I
or
see
fall?
that as being pretty quickly, yeah.
And could you maybe also kind of update us again? The further mitigation really is the wall, kind of a retaining wall that is along the railroad side,
Working
right?
in
And the
conjunction.
railroad has given us
Yes.
permission to go ahead
So
and,
our design firm, Graham,
Design.
is working with HDR, who is the Canadian Pacific Railroad Company's design firm as well, engineering firm. And so what Dee was alluding to is that built-in mitigation component of since we're going to be closed for access off Ripley and Harrison on the south side anyway, you know, that we're able to build in a sort of pedestrian-friendly new experience that is also helpful, not only helpful, critical to the flood mitigation in the future for the building. And so that is the whole idea behind this. And relatedly, Taste of Ethiopia, we have a south entrance, right? We have parking in the north, no more parking on the south. So how do we take them to the next level? Well, you do a wraparound, extension of their deck and allow handicapped accessibility from the parking lot to the north up onto a new deck on the west that wraps around to the existing on the south. And so those are component pieces and gives you a flavor for how it will change and look, and actually, I think, be pretty neat in the end. And so much so FEMA initially is a process to go through, and we're just at the beginning stages, but their level of receptivity is really positive at this point.
and I don't want to put you on the spot yet, right now, but in terms of damage on the interior, well, and the exterior, but damage on the interior, that was north of $250,000, right, in
Yes.
the end? And maybe that would be something that would be good for the commission to know, but that is the key number. I mean, if you're spending $500,000 to $800,000 mitigating, but every time you get a 18.5 flood, you spend 250 to 300,000. It seems to be the ability to get to a ratio that FEMA would definitely would fund, I guess.
And
I
that's
think
where
it's
we
1
find
to 1
ourselves.
or less.
It's exactly where we find ourselves. They wouldn't consider it a project if the funding, even if they thought it was a good idea, if the funding numbers and the ratio didn't match or didn't work out.
I think Bill has a question here.
Yes, I do. So is the visitor center open to the public right now, or if not, how soon?
I think we're a matter of days. They were supposed to have been on June 15th, but I haven't seen the full presence yet, but I think we're a matter of days away, yes.
All right, you want to go to,
So leading up to that, in your packet is some construction documents, and so general approval, knowing that it goes through staff and what we call E-plan review, everybody touches it, city council has to approve it, but, you know, we're involved in this, and so I thought it best to have you all approve it as
oh,
well.
you want us to approve this? So when would it then go to city council?
It might be another cycle or two. It likely would be a couple cycles from now, yes.
All right, all right. So that's pretty exciting.
No, no. Item D has discussion and action for the Union Station
Yeah.
interior and
So
exterior.
what we're,
Yeah.
okay, so Bill, what we're approving here is basically the projects as designed by Graham.
Yes.
So that would be both for the temporary repairs and to submit to FEMA, this design.
This, what I gave you did not contemplate the mitigation, right, in the packet. I can do that at the next meeting,
So
for
this
sure.
is just the repair, that's gonna be bid out? Oh,
Yes.
All right, well, that's even simpler.
Yes.
All right, so if everyone understands that what's in the packet is literally the repair, and this is the portion that FEMA will fund through having the flood, and they approved it as a project. So this would be the project that would go to bid, and then this is the one that they would participate in. Is that at 80% or what?
75.
75%. Is there a motion to approve the repair project design?
So moved.
Other,
I-
wait a minute, let me get
I
a
don't-
second. Let me get a
But
second.
get a second, then you can talk, right? Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll
I got
second that.
Kelly.
I got Gwendolyn. Yep, thank you. No, okay.
If,
Did you get a second?
if according to the way it works, they give you the money and you start doing the mitigation, and then a flood comes along, and you get the damages again, who gets those damages?
Wait, I don't follow. After a mitigation project is
You have the
completed.
mitigation work here. You put it under contract, it starts to be done, and then the flood comes, the mitigation's not done. Who's gonna pay then for the damages?
I don't know. I mean, that's, from a sequencing standpoint, we would need to be mindful of the construction timeframe and communicate that accordingly with them. I think we would always have the HESCOs that we have the building that's protected with various steel door kinds of things, depending on a level, but then the secondary HESCO barrier. And if we're in the midst of an unfinished mitigation project, I would, and it's a time period where we get a flood, you know, as you're describing, I would suspect that we'd still need to put up the HESCO. You know, I mean, we'd still have to make it so that we could get in there and put the perimeter, protect the perimeter like we always have.
So you asked about if it was under construction,
Unfinished,
what
right,
happens?
right.
That too can be submitted to FEMA. Projects under construction that are damaged during a flood are eligible for repair, even though it is a flood mitigation project. But I think one of the things that the Public Works Department would have to consider is how will they protect this?
Right.
Given where they are in construction, we'll only know when that happens. So, you know, the real hope is that it gets concluded before the end of this calendar year,
Correct.
this part.
If I understand what you said, they haven't given you the money yet to do
We
the
haven't gotten-
protection. The mitigation's being done, but they haven't gave you the money to do.
No,
a
this
we
is
have
re-
not-
This is repair. This is just strict
understand.
repair at this point.
We haven't even received approval for mitigation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And backed up to that, repair and replace is like a reimbursement program.
Yeah.
It's funds we've already spent cleaning up and getting the building back to where it is now. And then that's reimbursable at a 75% ratio. You know, they're two different programs, but mitigation looks promising, but we're very early in that process. My hope is that we'll get approval by sometime in the winter and be ready to go, bid letting and all
Before
of
the
that.
flood.
Well, I don't know about before, but, you know, we need to protect it as we then mitigate or begin construction of mitigation. My guess is that won't take longer than a complete construction season, which hopefully would be in the span of 2021.
Yeah.
Then
And
we'd
if
be ready.
you really look at this project, it's more than just fixing the sunk hole bricks. I mean, they're allowing us to repair this in a much more substantial way, and they're willing to pay for 75% in this repair to be able to make sure that when this is done, we can protect the building. If I got that right, that's
Yeah.
what it appears.
And there's still HESCO involved, like
Oh,
that
yeah, you gotta
doesn't
build the
diminish it,
HESCO.
it just won't be as robust of a HESCO barrier. Let me restate that. It won't need to be as large as of one, okay? We'll have a built-in situation, we'll pick up and from that built-in area and take HESCOs around, so like half, if it's close to a 50-50 thing, and that's what they like,
Yeah, I think what,
that's what we
the
like.
terminology I read when I was trying to read through the FEMA stuff is that, having the actual barrier that far away from the building, it's at the railroad coming down each street and then coming around the north side of the building. There's a lot of dry side of building that's inside that barrier. The new design barrier. I mean, it has a lot of dry side and it has a lot of barrier already built. So then Public Works is really coming down on the north side and connecting and putting in
Yes.
a couple of gates. And that is a pretty simple process and much easier to control. And it's on very stable concrete. So we're not going to see a sinkage or whatever, because there's nothing that's going to be excavated or in the future. It's, it should work.
Yep, that's right, it's designed to,
Yeah.
that's right.
I have a question.
Yes.
So did you say that, I remember I keep coming back to this, where that berm that's going to be built around it, that ultimately would replace any need for a HESCO barriers, isn't that the ultimate plan?
Part of it.
But that's not that berm part is not being negotiated yet? That's not part of,
Well, there's been some discussions and HDR representing Canadian Pacific is open to it because there's an easement issue and there's some of this logistical stuff. And so it seems like we're on the same page. There seems general agreement about.
I mean, we have a project, the city could
Right.
build it itself, but what we're trying to do is,
connect
we're trying to have FEMA pay for
Right.
this more permanent solution.
Right.
I mean, that's the real.
but that
they're willing to.
berm that we saw once upon a time, we saw a plan,
Right.
that is the permanent solution, isn't
That
it?
will
Part
be
of
the
it, at least.
permanent.
Part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
okay.
all right. So now all we need to is vote on this item. All those in favor? Aye. A little more.
Aye.
Oh, perfect.
Aye.
All right. I hear all of them. It's approved. So let us know when it will be going to city council. That'd be great.
Sure. Then on item E, the Canadian Pacific Railroad crossings, work, construction is getting underway. Marquette is underway, and Ripley Street, starting Monday, will be closed. It'll be a hard closure at River Drive in Ripley, so there you'll have inaccessibility into the freight house from that side, as well as Union Station. You'll have to come in from Harrison there, and for the freight house down at Western, at the modern Woodman parking lot area. We've been in touch with all the tenants and explained some of this. It's gonna go on tentatively through August 21st. And then, that process at Ripley, that project at Ripley also takes into account some Beiderbecks, so across the crossing and parallel to Leclerc Park. But then you flip that in mid to late August when you finish Ripley Street and that crossing is restored permanently and to grade. Then they're gonna work on Harrison, and that'll be another 6 to 8 weeks, doing sort of the mirror image of that. And so that whole area is going, and then those are just 2 of like 7 crossings, and all of which are to be constructed by the end of, by winter, by the end of the construction season, including, one of you asked already, River Heritage Park. And so the schedule currently shows, just like we communicated to American Cruise Lines, that they may not be able to start, we're not in control of that. They may have to be at Oneida like they typically are for either all of this year or half of it. And it looks like they wouldn't be able, if everything goes right, wouldn't be able to start at River Heritage Park. They'd have to start at Oneida, but half of their season would be able to be at River Heritage if everything goes right with the restoration of the railroad at River Heritage entrance.
What,
Yes.
what happens if you have 2 cruise boats that are there at one time?
Well, we have two agreements, but the Viking isn't supposed to set sail until 2022.
And so what you're telling me is you anticipate only one at Oneida?
Yes.
Okay.
And those all need to be scheduled ahead of time, so I know that. I mean, those are scheduled with me. So we have American this year and next year, and then in 2022, we'll have both. And by then, we will have River Heritage Park. There's $1 million in this fiscal year 21 budget that begins July 1st from the city council to extend the Riverwalk to prepare the eventual landing of 2 at River Heritage Park. And so we just need to get through this. And then next year, River Heritage will be open to American, and then the second year, that construction that will be underway or finished will be ready in 2022 for both cruise lines, the Viking and American at River Heritage Park. So we have some time, but we got to.
So are they still coming this year? Or they-
Yeah, I keep getting notices, updates that they haven't started, but they aren't. They're just going to pick up at some point. And so I guess it remains to be seen, but as of right now, American is saying they will have restoration of their season at some point. And our first one isn't here until August 16th. And then they go through October, and I think there's 16 stops. So I think there's 7 and 9, 7 at Oneida and 9 or 9 and 7, I can't remember, but it was about half and half.
But because of the COVID thing, is
Yes.
that
Yes.
still on
Their
schedule?
call, yes.
It is?
Yeah. Well, they had to give up some of their season
Oh, okay.
already.
So that's a
But
late.
that doesn't affect us
Right. Yeah, okay.
currently.
I've seen this, in fact, I got a set of plans on the dining room table to show the walk going up along the seawall. But I don't understand at all how we expect the cruise boats to get those people from there to a bus, because there's no way to get a bus up there right now. I don't see anything in the plan. All I see is a walk being improved, which is a beautiful walk. But you can't take people off a cruise boat and expect them to walk 500 feet down to the bus.
So part of the crossing, the railroad crossing restoration plan, not part of the plan you're looking at, but part of the one that they're gonna work on here, the CP is gonna work on this year, has sort of a hammerhead turning radius and in a width expansion to that railroad entrance, that vehicular railroad crossing entrance. And that's the answer for that. We've never promised, in fact, we were very forthright and said, you're not gonna get 8 buses in here, no one wants that. They were neither of the cruise lines need that, one. They just need one at a time. So we're fine, they'll be able to come in. It wasn't designed, we don't wanna take up more park space to create a whole big parking lot for buses and all of that. We will give up too much land for that. So the idea was you widen a bit and it will allow for buses, fire engines, all of that. And that's part of the railroad crossing restoration piece, not the river walk piece, but it's happening, definitely. And then the 2 will match. The 2 will actually, there'll be a walk path from the river wall so that we have that envisioned, people will be boarding buses and whatnot, yeah. Any other questions on that?
Okay. Do you have any other items?
Just very briefly on a couple other things, forwarded to you an invitation extended to us from the Freight House Farmers Market for Friday, July 10th. From 5 to 7, they're gonna do an official sort of opening of a really cool renovated space there at the Freight House. So hopefully you all can attend that. Later in the month, I'm spacing this out purposefully because hoping to get the biggest bang for our buck. Perhaps late July, early August, we will do a official ribbon cutting for the deck. No reason to do this all together and only get one media interest out of it. My goal would be to try to space this out 2 and 3 weeks and try to remind folks in the community what exists at the Freight House. So many are already enjoying the deck, but we'll have an official ribbon cutting later July, early August at this
Steve,
point. Yes.
we'll be in a new fiscal year. I know the lighting on the top of the pole was not included in the project.
It was not,
And
and so
what is the price of that? And is it possible that we can get it in this next fiscal year or?
I'm making it happen as we speak. So it'll happen first part of July, like right here coming up, first part of July 4th in the new budget.
So for the ribbon cutting, for all of us that stay until, let's see, that would be like 9:30, we could see the lights.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool.
That's right. Yes.
Awesome.
And then also, you kind of alluded to this, but you might have all heard about cancellation of the Red, White, and Boom, as it were, but the city council has decided to have a sponsor and produce a fireworks display on Friday, July 3rd. It'll be at 9:30 and in various places, along the riverfront and beyond. And so that more information about best places to be and all of that, with all the construction going on, is forthcoming here in the next day or so. But it's a good thing generally, right? Because especially for a lot of the businesses, many of our tenants, with the cancellation or postponement of many events, and so many things that have happened in the last 2 years, flooding, COVID, having events like this are truly important, appreciated, and meaningful. And so, if you're at all interested, that I think I'm kind of coordinated to have a bit of, some classic cars that will be down there, trying to make it fun for a few hours before the fireworks get underway. There'll be some food trucks, along with some of our building tenants. Obviously, we'll be expecting to be very busy, but, it all kind of gets underway about 5-ish on July 3rd. And of course, the display will start at 9:30.
Are you going to use the new flex lot, or is that just going to be for anybody who wants to be there?
Yeah, I think that is programmable space as well, but there's some, there's various pockets that are under construction, and access is kind of difficult, not only because of the railroad crossing, but because of the 1930s sewer. And so we're hopscotching around some of that. So it's, be patient. But all this stuff is very good. And that's all I have at this point.
Parks liaison. Michael, are you on the line?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah?
Okay. Richard just sent out an email. We're gonna get back together, the subcommittee back in August. I think Steve mentioned that. And we had really good head of steam going, a lot of good discussions going back before the virus, but now we'll have to start over. So I'll keep you posted, but Richard said he's pretty well looking at starting up again in August.
Okay. All right. Is that it, Mike?
That's all I know.
All right, thank you. All right. So that would be all of our reports. Any public with business to present on the phone? Okay, there are none. I think we can have a motion to adjourn. Second? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Same to you.